Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the other forms, the other basic forms that you would be shading. This is a cone right here. So it is round, but it has more of a vertical shape to it. So when you shade it, you want to shade around it this way. If you were to actually draw cross contour lines around it, they would go like that. And the shape of the shadow actually is wider at the bottom and more narrow at the top because obviously the cone is wider at the bottom, more narrow at the top. The different values that you would use in the shadow are usually darker in the center, the core shadow, and a little lighter at the edges where they fade out into the highlight, which is actually on both sides here. This would be an example of the light coming more from behind the cone. So you could have about 50% right here, like I've added in there, and then 10% towards the edges. The cast shadow is usually darker. I wrote in 80% so that you have a lot of contrast with the cone and the cast shadow. And then we shaded the background to give to get rid of the outlines and to show contrast. The very top of the cone is flat, and sometimes it will have, most of the time it will have a little bit of value depending on where your light is coming from. And then we have a cylinder for our next form. The cylinder has a rounded side and a flat top. So it has two different aspects to it. The flat top usually receives most of the highlight. However, it will have a little bit of shadow, usually on the side that's opposite of the light source. So here we have 10%, and then it goes to 0% highlight. The side that's rounded will also change in value. Usually the side that's furthest away from the light will be the darkest, so we have 60% here, and then that fades away to a very light value over here, which is about 5%, and then we see a little bit of shadow peeking around from the other side, which you will see quite often. And then we have a dark cast shadow. That's a rounded shape, kind of a circular shape or an ellipse. Pretty dark right directly under the form, and then it gets lighter towards the edges. And then we shaded the background once again. And then we have a cube, which has 6 faces, but we only see 3 or 2 of them, depending on your view. So right here we have 3. The light's coming from the upper right, so we have our highlight on the top, and we have a little bit of shadow, 10%, on the side that's furthest from the light source. And then we have the right side, the right face of the cube, that's getting quite a bit of light, but it's not 0%, so that could be 10 to 20%. That could also change in value. Usually the edges will stay a little darker, and then the center will be a little lighter. And then we have the darkest side of the cube, which is opposite the light source. We have a little bit of reflected light down here, which is about 30%. And then in the upper left-hand corner, it gets to the darkest value, which is about 60%. So the values will change on the flat sides of a cube. And we have the dark cast shadow down here. And we shaded the background.